Back for episode 3 of Structures, the place to share the journey of your life and your sound. Thanks for tuning in. Oh, by the way, my name is Thad. My first 2 episodes I recorded, I forgot to introduce myself. So there you go. I'm Thad. And who's my guest today?
I'm Carolyn, but I think people in our world know me by my handle, which is Tangent Universes.
Tangent Universe. So you're Carolyn, but your other is Tangent Universe. Is kind of like a parallel dimension, another version, you might say, huh? I like your name, that the Tangent Universes. I love that stuff. Hey,
It
thanks
come
so much for doing this today. I know you're very busy, and I just really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your story and adding some energy to this project as it's starting out. So I'm very grateful for that. I want to tell you that right away. Excuse me.
Thanks for having me, and I apologize. It sounds like you're clearing your throat, and I'm nasally from springtime. So maybe we'll just have a full podcast of us sneezing.
That's okay.
Um,
I have a tissue ready. Do you?
yeah, I have tissues. I made tea
Yeah.
about 5 minutes ago. I was like, great,
I actually
coming on
have
here.
I have some iced tea here as well for myself. So but that's
I've
okay.
got
We're just humans. This is what happens. It's all good.
Oh, what do you mean? I thought when we join social media on the internet, we become superhuman unboxers.
Yeah, I thought so too. But after going through the gamut of learning how to post and then getting burnt out and then having an account hacked and starting over, I realized I am in fact human.
Well, it's also just a reminder that there is way cooler stuff going on in real life,
That
like this conversation,
that is the
versus,
fact. Yeah. I often find myself like when I'm having like the most fun, like awesome times, that's when I take the least pictures and share the least stuff because I'm so into the moment.
oh, you know what? I just ordered myself a film camera. Like,
Nice.
I got a little plastic one, like a little plastic half frame a few months ago, but for my birthday, I was like, I'm gonna get like a full-blown 35 millimeter camera, and I like the idea of waiting to see these things, you know,
Yeah, yeah. It's like
versus
it's like a little surprise for later, you know.
I think we exist in this culture of immediacy, and I think we've forgotten, I
Yeah.
can't talk this morning, how to really appreciate things. So I don't know. That's pretty preachy, but I think I'm just looking forward to waiting for something that's just for me.
I really like that. And we didn't plan this, but I love how this is starting out talking about the what's real, versus the the illusion or portrayal that we do online. Not that we're trying to be inauthentic, but it's only a little glimpse or a snapshot of who we are and what we do. And that really is the driving theme behind this whole project. Like, I've met people that are so amazing, and I just want a chance to showcase artists and let them tell their story, their life, their sound journey in more in depth than a reel or a few slides on a post. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, one of the reasons I said yes to this, I guess for people listening, Thad and I barely know one another, but we are big fans of small kits with puddles to
Yeah,
travel with. But Thad caught my eye because they were out there bike packing with a small case of puddles and building a tiny house and going fishing with their children. And that is a lot of things from my life on the white side of my family. We are from Appalachia, and I have this memory of being on the back of my dad's motorcycle and going fishing and like the Blue Ridge. And that reminded me so much of just kind of someone that could be in my family on my dad's side.
maybe I am. You never know.
In that region, it's entirely possible.
Yeah, yeah. I do know. I didn't know this before you just told me, but I know now you are in fact from Appalachia because you said Appalachia and not Appalachian.
It's a little more nuanced. My mom is from Honduras, and my dad was a medevac pilot in the army. So I grew up weirdly around Alabama, which probably nobody saw coming,
Yeah.
and Tennessee, and then Texas. But my adult life has been Chicago and Baltimore, two very different things. But yeah, Appalachia.
Appalachia. Throwing Appalachia. Okay. Uh, you just mentioned a little bit of your history or growing up. So let's go back there because I don't want to lose the opportunity for you to share just because we keep having a conversation between ourselves. So let's go.
Sure.
I know. Well, so let's start right now with some of the projects and things you're involved in now. That way, if someone doesn't know you, they get an idea of what you're into and what you're doing. I know that's a long list. You can condense it if you want.
Okay, well, I currently live next to the Patapsco River, which has actually been in the news a lot because of what happened to the Key Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been a really strange thing for a couple of weeks. But I live about 12 miles from that, which is the Baltimore area. And I think most people in our sphere know me for modular sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I feel a little funny about that sometimes because I think we all go through phases, and I'm having a little bit of burnout with the modular stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And, it's always hard to kind of change a little. But I work as a communications director for a festival in DC called Sound Scene. And it's held annually at the Hirshhorn Museum and the Smithsonian Family of Museums. I think sometimes people don't know the Smithsonian's like several separate museums with different themes. So
Yeah.
we are hosted by the Hirshhorn, which is more modern and contemporary art. But I'm interested in museum sound installations, and I work with my partner and husband, Peter, on installations that kind of capture collective memory, but then we'll use analog technology to kind of display those things. So we've done things like build tape boxes to play loops of glacial sounds. And the project we're working on right now is called Longest Day, Longest Night, which we've collected recordings from as many people as we can, where they unknowingly recorded a sound on solstice just on their cell phone
Oh,
from
cool.
any solstice, any year, at any time. And we put it in this big telephone switchboard. And you can pick up a standard landline phone and dial that memory,
Oh, wow.
uh, because our sound scene theme this year is solstice. So I'm primarily interested in museum and installation work, but I came to it through Modular Sense. I, for a long time, helped out with the DC Modular Collective. Um, I also work at Mystery Circles, um, which, sorry, I've never thought about having to explain this stuff, but Mystery Circles is mostly an ambient label, but we're open to a lot. We get a little experimental.
Yeah.
But we put out some great physical media, some great vinyl, and great tapes. And I do writing mostly at Mystery Circles. And then I'm just a person that's active in electronic music. So I play a lot of shows locally and regionally. My touring schedule has me going to Boston and Philadelphia. And my next show is at Washington, D.C.'s Rhizome, which is an incredible DIY art space that's going through a lot of changes. But if you're in experimental music, you're probably familiar with Rhizome. And that's April 18th. And I'm running a quadraphonic show, which I've never done. And I'm really nervous about it. But yeah.
Quadraphonic. Okay. I'll bite. What is? Maybe I'm uneducated. What's quadraphonic?
First off, you are not uneducated, and secondly, it can be kind of a audiophile nerdy thing, which I'm not even sure I know much about. But I was asked to help out with the show, and we have an artist coming in from Seattle named RM Francis that does computer music. And he asked if we could do a quadraphonic show because he liked to set in quad, And then I knew a lot of modular synth people that work in quad and had all the gear, and I was just like, yeah, sure, why not? So quadraphonic, I guess to make it really simple, is four speakers, like surround sound, instead of two speakers, like stereo.
Oh, okay.
And if this is really particular to modular synths, but I guess I'll just give an example through a module or a device.
Sure.
A lot of people like to use the IntelliGel planar, or maybe like an Ectol quad massager, but it's basically a joystick where you can move whatever is patched in around to the different quadrants or your different
Nice.
speakers. So let's say you like bird sounds, you can kind of make the bird ping from speaker to speaker by using this joystick, and it's supposed to be an immersive experience for the listeners, but then you always kind of have issues with setup. So like Rhizome is actually a house
Yeah.
that's rented as a venue. So we've been kind of grappling with positioning of the speakers so that the audience is inside the circle of speakers versus outside, because then it doesn't work. But
Right,
then we
right.
have all these problems like, well, if we put one speaker in the kitchen because it's all kind of open, like if you're by the refrigerator, can you hear the sound? If we put one on the staircase. So I've been troubleshooting that. It might be a total disaster. I don't know. Um,
So
but
quadraphonic is an experiment or practice in itself, and then you're doing it in rhizome. So it's like a music experiment inception, because you got quadraphonic, then you got the house, and then you got like, I love it.
Well, I always say things are more fun if you walk into them blindly, which would probably scare any perfectionist on the planet. But I think I'm a little more about the practice and the experience than the mastery sometimes. But yeah, quadraphonic has a whole history, and kind of notably, Susan Ciani likes to play in quadraphonic sound. And it really started to emerge in the 70s. And you can go to a record store sometimes and find like these old quadraphonic records for quadraphonic systems, and they have these like extra grooves where the needle can either hit the stereo side or like the quad side.
That's so
And they're
cool.
like, have, yeah, but I'm sure there are way more qualified people than me to explain it. And
It,
if you're really interested in learning about quadraphonic sound, there's an artist out in California that's like Frank Martin, and he has a website that I think it's something like Peachy. I'll find it and give you the link, Thad, but
okay.
he keeps just meticulous notes on running quad sound.
It
Um,
sounds almost
but
like a precursor to surround sound.
yeah, that's a good way to put it. And I don't really know like the history of sound. And I know we're getting into like Dolby Atmos territory, or I think
Right.
for me, I think about kind of when I was a kid and like the IMAX cinema experience, like walking into those theaters. And what made it feel so immersive was also the sound design, because you would have like six speakers set up
Yeah.
when I was a kid. And I had never heard or seen anything like that. But yeah, we're a little more DIY quad show. I think our speakers might not even match at the rhizome, so we'll see how it goes.
That it sounds right up my alley. Like if I was in that neighborhood, I would be there. That I'd be a part of that. It sounds so amazing. Just the sounds and the experimental nature of the whole thing. I love it. Would you? I got some pictures you shared for me to put on the make the slideshow. Do you want to share anything about any of these photos?
Um, sure. Well, I sent them in because you asked me for them, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Well, how about this? Since there's probably like more than 10, why don't you tell me what catches your eye in the pictures, and we can go from there.
Well, let's see. Some of them are really don't need explanation because they're just you got some awesome outdoor photography. You got some of your collage artwork. Tell us about Arthur Russell.
Okay, so Arthur Russell is a hero of mine, and I'm probably making him sound almost too basic, but he was from Iowa, and he played cello, and cello turned into experimental cello. And suddenly he's leaving Iowa for San Francisco in the 70s, which San Francisco was a complete amazing place to be in the 70s for self-discovery. Arthur Russell was a poet as well, and he was slowly finding that he was queer. Um, and he went to go study both kind of the overlap of poetics and music. And then by the end of Arthur Russell's tenure, we find him in New York City, kind of really collaborating with a lot of people we know from CBGBs, like the Talking
Mm-hmm.
Heads. Like he would play cello in the Talking Heads. He would do his own experimental works, and he just left this huge body of work behind him. And they're still putting out recordings all the time. Um, but I read this amazing book by an author named Matt Marble, who's this incredible researcher that works at the intersection of kind of spirituality and music. And there's no premise to what that spirituality can be. You could be someone who's very driven by tarot cards and the occult. You could be someone very driven by Buddhism. In Arthur Russell's case, he was Buddhist, and the book is called Buddhist Bubblegum.
Mm.
And there's a documentary that's really incredible about Arthur Russell. And I'm totally looking up the name because I always call it the wrong thing. And it's like wild. Let's see here. Wild Combination is the name of the documentary. Um, but I think I'm just kind of that weird experimental kid, and Arthur's music and body of work and who he was just really resonated for me. And that quote with the Arthur Russell picture is from the documentary, but it says that we often don't allow ourselves the full extent of our complexities. And I think just to kind of circle back to our opening conversation about being humans and real people outside of the context of how social media kind of forces you into this silo to be a brand, to be focused on one thing.
Right.
I think that is really unfortunate because we are robust.
Yeah.
We have many sides. Sometimes it comes out in all kinds of music. Like I'm somebody who mostly works in ambient music, but I went to a harsh noise show last Friday and I like it,
Yeah.
you know. And Arthur Russell was an experimental celloist, but also made disco music under a different name with Sleeping Bag Records, and
That's so
was
cool.
really kind of at the forefront of disco.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay to like change throughout your life as you learn new things, or to be curious about everything else. And I kind of bring people a lot of dissonance as they meet me, because if I'm honest about it, like I'm a baseball mom from the suburbs, like
Yeah.
taking my kid to practice tomorrow morning. But I'm also a mom that plays in an experimental venue. I'm also a mom that packs a bag to go shoot documentaries, and that's okay.
S-
But as you interact with people, you find sometimes they can't process that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you need to be one thing or the other, or just even we talked about my family. Like I have a dad from Alabama that took me fishing in the back of a motorcycle. I have a mom from Honduras, you know, and I had a very blended, and like holidays would be so weird, you know, because it's like my grandma coming from Honduras to make us tamales and banana leaves, you
Yeah.
know, and then my southern grandma making us like ham and black eyed peas, and that's kind of the life I've had. So I like Arthur Russell because they were so many things contained in this one person, and I think that's what really made them such an incredible artist. Like they weren't afraid to always be experimenting.
Well, you mentioned riding on the back of your dad's bike, going fishing as a kid. Let's hang out there. Let's go back there and just share as you grew up. Like, how did you first get into music or just the interest in sound in general? And how did that progress along with your growth through the years just as a person?
I think I had kind of a difficult life as a kid, honestly. My parents divorced when I was in kindergarten,
Mm.
and my dad was always gone because he was in the military. So he would be in Germany. Uh, he went to Desert Storm as a medevac pilot. And it was a lot of kind of, there's this term, which I find people younger than me aren't familiar with this, but it's called a latchkey kid. And so many of us in the 80s had like two parents that worked, or like divorced parents where they couldn't kind of watch you after school.
Yeah.
So you're a latchkey kid. You let yourself into your house when you get off the bus, and you're going to be alone until about 7 o'clock, maybe even later if your parents worked a late shift like my mom did. My mom was actually a clerk in a video store, because she didn't speak English when my parents got divorced, and that was kind of the best job she could get.
Mhm.
So she worked nights until 10 o'clock. So I was just kind of alone, eating my TV dinner. And we had one rule in my house: I wasn't allowed to watch MTV. So what did I do?
You broke the rule.
I watched MTV for hours.
Yeah.
This was the 80s, back when it was good.
Right, right.
Um, so I think that was the first thing that really shaped me. And then I was a lonely kid. I didn't have siblings or like a family member checking in on me, and my dad was often out of the country. So I would do this very strange thing. We had a radio station in Houston called 104 KRB, and I think back then it was branded as Power 104, just kind of
Power
peak
104.
cheesy. Yo, oh, that is completely what it's like. I can even remember the DJ's name. It was like Paul Cubby Bryant at Power 104 KRB. But I would listen to the radio, and I would call the DJs all the time.
Yeah.
Like, talk to them.
As a kid, yeah.
And yeah. And so I heard this song, and I called them up, and I was like, what was that? And they're like, it's New Order. No, no. It was Joy Division.
Yeah.
It was like Love Will Tear Us Apart by Joy Division.
Why am I
And I
not
called,
surprised? Because I'm sorry to interrupt, but I've seen more than one post of Joy Division. Not necessarily about Joy Division, but like you're wearing the shirt or there's a piece of art or something like that.
oh, they were instrumental for me as a kid, like before I even understood the story or knew who they were. But something that really just stuck in my mind was I called the DJ, like, what was that song? And they're like, it's Love Will Tear Us Apart by Joy Division. And he gets real quiet, and I was like, are they going to come out with more records? Well, of course, this DJ is not going to tell me that Ian ended his life and the band is gone.
Right.
And he does this really kind thing for this curious kid. He goes, you know what? If you like Joy Division, there's a really great band you're going to love called New Order. I'll put on a New Order song next. Didn't tell me all the traumatic stuff behind it.
That was a
Next
very
up,
sweet thing and thoughtful thing for him to do, for he or she to do
and
like that.
it's
Yeah.
one of those things I revisit often in my
Yeah.
brain, like how thoughtful, tender, and shaping that weird interaction was.
Yeah, for sure.
And this was kind of the year they released Bizarre Love Triangle, with the music video of them kind of like doing the jumps through the sky.
Hmm.
But he told me to stay up late to watch the MTV premiere of Bizarre Love Triangle. And I remember I had a babysitter that night. Her name was Tammy Ayubi. And I'm really going to doubt that Tammy Ayubi is listening to this. But
I was just thinking, where is
she
Tammy now?
she was awesome and had like golden yellow eyeshadow because it was the 80s, and she had like a big perm. But she let me stay up and see the video premiere of Bizarre Love Triangle, and I think that's where it all started for me.
So thanks to the DJ and Tammy, you were thrust into the world of music.
Yes, thank you, 104 KRB. And that Christmas, my mom got me a Casio, which is one of those pictures.
Yes.
It's like this 100 sound tone bank from the 80s, and the demo song on it is Wake Me Up Before You Go Go by Wham.
Yeah.
got all these horns. But what was weird about finding that keyboard, that's not the actual one from my childhood, but as I got further down the sun hole as an adult, I was like, it would be really funny to find the keyboard I had as a kid, loved so much. So I went on Reverb and I find it, and it's being sold from the town I grew up in Texas, which is kind of a weird little town. And I was like, okay, now I have to order it because
Yeah.
it's coming from the Woodlands.
What if,
And I always,
that was the
I
one?
know, I'm not sure if it's my same one, but it was so strange that the only one for sale was from my hometown. And I ordered it, and it was kind of in bad shape. So my husband kind of like fixed it up for me, like 3D printed a battery compartment cover for the new one. And yeah, so lots of memories of a kid of just like incredible synthesizer music because it was the 80s. And not really having any friends or family to talk to, but radio station DJs.
I have a feeling a lot of people would relate to that sense of not having friends or family to talk to about it, and at least I know I can because I actually am the oldest of seven, but I'm I'm the weirdo, and it I didn't really I didn't have anyone to share this stuff with, so like music became my my friend, my connection. You know what I mean? So I'd really, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, for sure. Well, what and how old were you in that time from there with the DJ and getting your first keyboard? How young were you there?
I was probably 6 or 7.
That's so cool. I gotta say, because my youngest son is 6, and he just the other day asked me. I let him play with my stuff, but he asked me for his own guitar just the other day. So I'm gonna get him his own guitar at 6, just like you got a keyboard at 6.
Are you gonna get them a full size, or are we
No,
gonna
no.
scale it down?
Yeah, I'm gonna look at a 3/4 size, like maybe the Ibanez Geo or a mini Strat, something like that. He wants something that looks rock and roll. It's got to be red. You know.
Oh, you gotta get him like a red flying V with like two necks on it. That's like taller than him.
Well, that would be fun too, but I don't want to overwhelm him. I give him something a little bit easier to start with.
Yeah, my son is not too particularly interested in the stuff we've been through a lot of synthesizers. He's a Lego guy, so
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned Legos because I did have one question I wanted to ask you. If you uh, start a side project or another or a band or something like that, would you consider naming it Lego Flowers?
oh, because of all the Lego flowers
I
in
just
my
love all
office.
your Lego flowers, yeah. And I think it sounds like a band name.
That's funny. I probably will not start a side project called Lego Flowers because I think there's a trademark violation on there. But
Oh no, you just
yeah,
put two
my
G's in Lego and then you're fine.
right, right, and an umlaut like over the O just to confuse
Yeah,
everybody.
Lego.
Yeah, I think honestly, my husband doesn't know what to get me for holidays sometimes, so it just keeps being Lego Flowers.
More
And I
Legos.
have a backlog of Lego flowers right now because my family keeps giving them to me and I haven't had time to put them together. But yeah, I
Now,
have some.
now we laugh at this, but if someone doesn't know, just go look at your Instagram and you'll see Lego flowers. Um, so yeah, that was young childhood 6. When did you start uh, getting into really getting into art and sound more and maybe creating some things, or when did it become like a part of you and just come out of you more naturally as far
Well,
as your own creations?
I was always involved in film and documentary work just professionally and also as a art student. And I had worked around Chicago in short film and experimental 16 millimeter, and then later full-fledged documentary company called 137. And then I also had extra jobs on the side, working production and line producing for shoots with like SNA studios and anonymous content, like making commercials and just working on these sound stages. So I kind of professionally came over from film, but I didn't really start touching music for myself, especially with synthesis and a sound installation, until I was 40, and I'm going to be 43.
So I did not realize this, Carolyn, honestly, but we have a lot of things in common with our journey because I was, uh, I think, 39 or 40 when I started really getting into music myself as far as making music. So I didn't even know that. That's wild. And I always thought like I was late showing up, but I guess I'm not the only one. Like, I don't want to say late, but, starting it later.
There's no late to anything.
Well,
I
you know
feel
why
like
time isn't real. So,
um, I think more than that, just sometimes I like to turn stuff on its head, and it's an ongoing conversation, like just ageism in music and music marketing and the things we see all around us, or just even in acting. I remember working on all these commercial shoots, and sometimes I'd have to be part of the production office for the casting calls,
mhm,
and just seeing like 100 young women age 22 that all look alike
right.
coming in for a call, and feeling so old at the time, even though I was 28, you know? And I think it's really easy to get sucked into that. Like, I'm running out of time, or I'm going to be 50, or whatever.
Right.
You can do whatever you want at any time. And I know there's realities to resources and your own personal time, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's
That makes me, it reminds me of, uh, as opposed to feeling like maybe I'm quote unquote too old for this now or starting too late or however you want to view it. The flip side of that is I can remember being a young man or a teen and seeing some older gray haired dude that I just thought was so cool and like, man, I just want to be a cool old dude like that. And now as I'm getting closer to that, you know the roles reversed. Like I'm, oh man, I wish I was younger. Like the grass is always greener. You know what I mean?
well, for me, lately I've been really inspired by Kim Gordon coming out with this album, The Collective. And Kim's like 70, and she is out there touring, shredding, writing a rap album with some heavy drum and bass. My boss, over at Mystery Circles, had texted me her set from Jimmy Kimmel this week, and like, I'll never have that kind of energy. She's incredible, and she's been a performer and front woman, since 1978. I mean, her tenure with Sonic Youth is 40 years.
Yeah,
And here's someone that is 70, unafraid to learn new things, is incorporating synthesizers, is making a different kind of music. I mean, there's room for everybody. But
absolutely.
lately, I just find myself really inspired by Kim's work with this album. It's been great to see.
I guess in relation to the age or the time or timing, it's really everyone has the same. Everyone has today. Everyone has now. So all the rest is just details. Like if you're alive, you can do it.
Right, but I caution that line of thinking too, because a lot of us don't have resources as far as time and money. So I think something people don't know about me, and maybe why I waited so long to do this, is I was a single parent in Chicago for most of my adult life.
Mm.
And that includes not owning a car, taking two trains to get to my job and spending like an hour and 20 minutes commuting, not having a lot of money and resources, so I couldn't own things like the synthesizers I own now. And so something that's been really liberating, especially just being around people at the Rhizome in Washington, D.C., is recognizing that instruments can be found. You can be your own instrument. You can
Absolutely.
play a piece of sheet metal. And I think something I'm always thinking about, because I've had it both ways, is just resources and time, and how that looks really different for everybody and their responsibilities as caregivers, whether it be children or caring for a partner or parent who is struggling. Um, so
No,
I think I really
yeah.
pushed back on the we have the same 24 hours in every day. And I'm like, that's not really true for so many of us. Like,
No, I
some
absolutely
people
agree
have,
with that perspective, and I'm glad you brought that to light to balance that. Yeah, for sure. Because I totally relate. I barely have time to do this podcast, but I'm just making it happen. I'm just like I tried to uh, look hard at my work and home life balance and see where I could fit it in, and I have almost 1 day a week to work on this, and and some people I know you can't even get that. But it's, I guess when I said, we all have today, it's like, yeah, we may not have the resources to go buy all the gear we want today, or the time to seclude ourselves to make art today, but we can brainstorm, we can plan ahead, we can save a few dollars. There's something you can do today. You know what I mean? And like you said, you don't even need instruments. You can play a piece of sheet metal. I've done a lot of that. I mean, I barely have instruments now. I really don't have a lot of gear. So,
I went to that show in Baltimore like last Friday, and there was an artist named Eli Woodbridge. And he's like a former heavy metal drummer, is my understanding. But this was a noise show, and he took a large piece of metal and like drummed on it and then ran it through a bunch of tape delays, and it was amazing. I was like, but also part of it was just his energy as the artist. Like, I really didn't care what kind of gear was on the noise table or what the method was. It was just seeing the emotion and energy of this person.
I'm
Yeah.
glad you mentioned that example, because that brings it back to the human, and the possibilities. Because if you have a drive or a passion to do something, you'll find tools to help you do that. It doesn't, you don't have to have all the fancy gear. As a matter of fact, there should be no excuse nowadays. With You can get all kinds of apps to make music or record stuff on your phone, like, for free. So, you know just you might just have to work harder to find the way for you to be able to do it. But you can, it's possible.
Yeah.
I wanted to
Yeah, definitely.
go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's like when you're a kid and you think if you get your Air Jordans, it's gonna propel you into basketball greatness, and then you still suck at basketball.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, just because you buy the $3,000 guitar doesn't mean you're a great guitarist.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people make that mistake, and sometimes I struggle in modular culture because I find a lot of people really aren't about the art or engaging with synthesis, but it's more like acquiring modules and going, ooh, I have the latest. And
Right.
that always just feels bad somehow. Um, and then I'm sure people would be really quick to call me out with my modules, but
Yeah.
it's an easy trap to fall into,
It is.
honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have that with modules, but I know what you mean. I've been there with some other stuff like that, and it's easy to get into that, almost a collector mentality. Like, oh, look at all this stuff, but and there's nothing wrong with that, collecting stuff. But if your goal is to create, then it's easy to lose your focus if you get too focused on the gear or what have you.
Definitely.
Now, I like to ask everybody, uh, all my guests, like, if you have an example you could share of a major obstacle or a setback in your life, whether your life or your art journey that you had to overcome, and how did you do that?
Hmm.
Yeah, I know, no
Um,
warning on that one. Sorry.
I mean, honestly, right now I'm going through a lot. I lost my friend Barry in August, who was kind of my mentor in all of this. Like the whole reason I work at Sound Scene, the whole reason I continued on in synthesis. And they were a good friend and they looked after me and they taught me a lot. But he passed away really abruptly. And right before that, I lost my dad, who in the end I wasn't close to because he had an entirely different family and spouse and just kind of parted ways with me and my mom a long time ago. But I went from sudden loss of my dad to sudden loss of Barry. And I think they kind of had these strange overlaps for me about mentoring and who I am and who do I go to now for advice or how to navigate things.
Yeah.
And I realized talking to Barry each day was kind of a huge part of like my artistic practice and a strange way too. We were both really avid hikers and photographers, and we would send each other things each day. Like he would find a blue robin's egg, or I'm not sure if robin's eggs are blue, maybe I'm getting this wrong, but a blue egg out in the woods, and then the challenge would be I'd have to find one, and I'd find one and send a picture back. And I think it was a way of feeling like more connected in the world. But so many things have changed for me, and a lot of what we do in DC, Barry founded the DC Modular Collective, and that all changed, and leadership changed, and vision changed.
Yeah.
and, and it's just been hard to watch those changes, but you have to let go and let things shape themselves and become what they're going to be.
Yeah.
But I, this was only August, and I think it's just been a big season of grieving, and I've been honestly burned out on music, which it's strange to do an interview or play shows, and really I just want to stare at a ceiling
Yeah.
and trying, I actually started turning down gigs because I decided I just needed to take a big break for a while and process this. I stepped down from some just volunteer leadership positions because on one end it was really hard to hear about Barry all the time or people's interpretations of Barry. It can be kind of triggering, I guess.
Yeah.
And on the other end, I realized I had thrown myself into so much busy work, kind of preserving the things Barry did, that I never really took time for myself to just process that loss. So I think it's been one of the harder things, and maybe this is just a vast overshare, but I think anybody can relate to just finding it difficult to be creative and work
Yeah.
when you're in a lot of internal turmoil.
I really appreciate you sharing, so personally about that. Um, and my condolences to you as well. I think most everyone has lost someone at some point in time, and can relate to that. And I know I sure can. So, my heart goes out to you. And it sounds to me like you're you're doing well, but you're still kind of uh, coming through that, like what you said yourself, maybe still in a kind of a grieving process. And I just commend you for handling it like you are, because I can tell by the things you said, you're turning some things down, and making some different decisions in order to find that balance and give yourself the time you need to heal and grow and learn through the process. And I just really appreciate you sharing so intimately about that. Um, so thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Barry was an amazing synthesist, an artist, and avid player of sheet metal, random sheets of metal.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you sharing. And I know that you have a full schedule, and I don't want to, push you and keep you over. So, as we come to a close here, uh, I forgot to mention this earlier. You mentioned Tangent Universes. Is there anywhere else that people could find you or get a hold of you, or is that the best way?
I am actually going through a season where I'm like, please don't find me or get a hold of me.
Okay, do I need
It
to
was kind of,
edit this and bleep out all the Tangent Universes references? Because I'm not really into editing, but I can do
it's
that if.
okay.
Okay.
It's okay. I'm Tangent Universes. That's my musician name. That's my project. And yeah, my next shows are um, the quadraphonic show that might be a disaster on April 18th
Hmm.
at Rhizome, DC. And then after that, I go up to Boston on May 4th at Glitch Gallery with a lot of modular synth people. The show is called Soft Collaborations, and it's going to be awesome. It's a big, immersive visual arts show. Um, and then after that, June 1st at Art Sound Language, which is a record store in Washington, D.C. My friend Steve has done this wonderful project called Visual Audio Landscapes, where he has selected music from different, well, we have a term in this area called the DMV, um, but it's, District, Maryland, Virginia. But he painted abstracts of our songs of different DMV artists. And that's a show and an art opening on June 1st. And then June 22nd and 23rd, my installation is at Sound Scene at Smithsonian Hirshhorn in Washington, D.C. It's a great festival. It's free, it's family friendly. Come visit. And yeah, I don't really have a big internet presence. I guess I just keep up an Instagram because I like pictures of waterfalls. I don't know. So I'm tangent_universes on Instagram. Please don't look at my Bandcamp. It's like a 16-year-old made a bunch of like sad Tori Amos songs. I'm still learning about music production. And I have a tape coming out on Mystery Circles this October. It was supposed to come out last October, but I had just lost
Hmm.
Barry and I just couldn't work. And luckily, David, who runs Mystery Circles, is a really wonderful person, and we bumped it back. So I have my first full album on a label coming out this October, which is kind of where my energy is headed for the rest of the summer. But that's me, and I'm really terrible about answering DMs. So don't message me.
Yeah, listeners, don't bug her. Just like her pictures and go see
Yeah,
her shows and stuff. So
I think what I'm trying to get out is I want to spend more time in the real world, going to shows, seeing shows, and reciprocating with the people that come to my shows, going to see what they do. And I'm just
absolutely.
really trying to take my life offline. So yeah, I don't want to be chat buddies or do unboxings. I just want to see you in real life and wave at you and hear
Yeah,
about your life and your music.
absolutely. I love how excuse me, how that was I guess a theme of our conversation, and we didn't talk about beforehand what we would talk about. It just seems like that's a theme, I guess. To be more human and less digital in our relation to the world, you know?
You know what? I'm going to give a piece of advice because I was looking at your post that and you had kind of put up your bacon sandwich.
Oh my
You're
God.
like, well, since the algorithm won't put my stuff out here, here's a
Yeah,
time lapse of my bacon sandwich.
yeah.
You know what? I am somebody who plays a lot of shows weekly, and I'm somebody who works at a label. And I just want to say that having a lot of online followers does not equal having people who purchase your records and come to your shows. In
Or even,
fact,
yeah,
honestly, sometimes at the label, I'm a little more impressed when you have less followers because the hope is you're busy and out in the real world.
right.
So nobody should ever lose heart about that stuff, like ever. And you should not like tie your self-worth to anything like that. It's not real.
Uh,
And
yeah.
and
And
I understand people have to make a living, and there's, a lot of people that monetize with YouTube and things like that, or stay-at-home parents who need this extra income. So I'm not here to beat you up. I just want to say that you you may not even need this stuff, but go play shows, go see
yeah.
your friends play shows, just keep showing up.
Oh, you're not beating me up. That actually was a joke. That's that whole bacon sandwich thing was it's just a joke. It was supposed to be funny, you know? Like if you
Oh no, I get the jokes.
okay,
This
okay,
is
okay.
more for
Yeah.
anybody listening. If I had to give some like
Yeah.
salty old mom advice, it's
Well, I like
get
to
off the internet.
yeah, absolutely. At the end of every show, I ask someone to give an encouraging word to listeners or some motivational words, but I think you've already done that. You know, the way you summarize that and so many things you said through the conversation. So I don't even need to ask you for an encouraging word because that's it. You know, like don't worry so much about the followers or the digital platform. Get out there and just do the thing and live life and interact with real people around you in your community. That's just summarizing what you said, not trying to put words in your mouth, but I,
You're good, Dad.
yeah, I really love that. So I know you got to get going, Carolyn, and I just am so grateful for your time and for sharing the way you did. Uh, I just really love it. So I'm gonna close
Yeah.
out now, unless you have anything else you want to share.
Oh no, I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking time to chat with me because I know you're a busy parent too. And I really appreciate it. And I've always appreciated how thoughtful and unique you are. And yeah, hopefully someday I'll head back down south and maybe we can all do some fishing. It's
Yeah.
been a long time for me
Well,
and I do miss it.
I've met a lot of people through you know making music buddies on Instagram, and there's a handful I'd love to meet one day, and you're one of them. You know, to meet in person because it seems like we connect with the family life and loving nature and all that. It's really good. So I'm really glad you did this with me today, and I got to talk to you and meet you, get to know you a little better. So,
Well, thank you, Thad.
all right, I'm gonna wrap it up. I know you gotta get going, so I'll let you go, and I'm just gonna close out the show. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
You have a great day, Carolyn. Well, that was it. Structures episode number 3. So don't worry about the platform. Go out there and live life. Meet the people around you, and and just stay in love with yourself and with the world. Peace.